Let's bring in CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayyem. Juliette, good to see you this morning. Notice that you tweeted this Atlantic article you wrote after the January 6 attacks, almost a year ago, saying this. As we gear up for 1/6 anniversary coverage, posting my take then, many criticize this for calling Trump the leader of a terror movement who uses violence or threat as an extension of politics. After a year, I think I was too kind. Yes. So if you think you were too kind to call him a extremist leader then, what would you call him now?
Well, he continues to be the leader of an organization that uses violence or the threat of violence to disrupt democratic processes. That is terrorism. And I think, you know, we tend to focus on different pieces of the post-January 6th world. So we have the election systems and the states and the fights over states and voting rights. We then have the investigation, the January 6th, and then all the cases that are going on against people who were in the Capitol. But I think we sometimes forget that what sort of connects everything is violence and the threat of violence that now animates so much of our political discourse coming from Republican leadership, from right-wing media. And it's not just, you know, it's not just sort of random violence. I mean, it's targeted against secretaries of state, against various Congress people. Of course, we even see it percolate into the COVID space against attacks or language against leaders. And so it's that acceptance of violence and the threat of violence as part of a political agenda that I think I underestimated on January 6th.
And Juliette, we were just talking to Whitney about what the committee is doing, what they think January 6th is going to look on the anniversary of it and their work overall. And so I'm wondering if now that we are approaching the one-year anniversary, if you've been impressed with the work that they've done so far.
I have, and I think people are impatient, and I understand that, and a year seems very, very like a long time. But let's just put this in perspective. There are 600 or 700 criminal cases against the people who were in the Capitol. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because they did something wrong, and a lot of them are getting jail times. It also matters from the counterterrorism perspective, the world that I grew up in, which is if you view Trump as leading a terror movement, these cases are undermining his ability to recruit, to raise money. And you're seeing that. You're seeing these organizations like the Proud Boys, very difficult for them to reform. Trump has been deplatformed by Twitter. He cannot fill a room. Let's remember that. He is having these rallies. They are not filled up to the, to the rafters. That's a good thing. You want to minimize his capacity to both engage and incite. And then the committee is taking its time, and I think rightfully so. I thought it was interesting that Nancy Pelosi said something about historians. I think if we can get out of the headlines of what's going to happen to Trump and really take a step back, I think Nancy Pelosi sort of has the long view that this has to be a legacy investigation, lest we go down this path every 2 years. So I have been, I don't like the violence that surrounds so much of our political discourse coming from GOP leadership and GOP members, but there are pieces of good news in terms of counteracting that radicalization.
Juliette, I got to ask, what accountability do you think needs to be put in place to break up this movement as you describe it?
So, I mean, it's very hard to know whether the Republican Party is redeemable in the sense you see hints of it. You see McConnell now talking about January 6th being of interest, the January 6th committee being of interest to him. You are seeing other Congress members from the party sort of begin to accept the election. We don't know what's going to happen this election season. But I think in terms of accountability, people need to view it into two lanes. So one is the criminal accountability of Trump and members who were, and people who planned a violent overthrow of our democracy. That's what it was. We shouldn't be shy about what they were trying to do. It's clear that's what they were trying to do, and their criminal culpability. The other is, of course, trying to minimize the radicalization. That's really key for the long term. And I think that there are hints that that is happening. These cases are breaking up terror organizations. Donald Trump's ability to gather a crowd that is willing to be violent is now much less than it was a year ago. That's good. That's good news. I mean, it's not great news given the context, but that is the kind of thing that we need to be looking for in terms of trying to bring the temperature down.
All right, Juliette Kayyem, thank you very much.